Hey, good people. Grits or cream of wheat? Who the hell is racist? Does anyone ever ask if they touch your hair?
Black Like Me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Black Like Me.
Hey, good people. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. I enjoy talking with you and informing you about things that's happening inside our world. From time to time, I take a break from interviews just to talk about things that's happening either in the world or in my life. And hey, today is one of those days where I want to talk a little bit about those things. So first of all, I just want to say I like messing with people in general, but I really enjoy messing with white people. And I don't mean that disparagingly. You listen to this show, so you know that I'm not talking about demeaning people, but I like saying things that people don't expect me to say. So, for example, I was in a coffee shop today, just getting ready for coming to the studio, and I was getting my coffee ready for the studio, and I put cinnamon in it because it actually helps to lower blood sugar. My friends have been doing some research on this, and so rather than loading it up with sugar, I put the cinnamon in it. And so this white gentleman, was standing there fixing his coffee as well. And he says, wow, that seems like quite a concoction. And I said, well, yeah, but I really like my coffee the way I like my life, hot and black. And then it was just quiet for a second. I was fighting not to laugh. And he said, well, I like a little cream in mine. I was like, yeah, I bet you do. And, it's just funny. Like when you're standing at someplace making your coffee, nobody's expecting you to say anything that's related to race. So it's just funny how there was this awkward pause for just a second as this guy was thinking, okay, how do I come back? Because can I say that I like cream in my coffee? Is it okay to be white? Can I like white? So it was funny. So he just said, yeah, I like a little cream. It's like, come on, sir, you like a lot of cream in your life. Stop downplaying it. You know it's a good day in America for cream and cream lovers. So go ahead, just lean into it. You know that's real. So that was just fun. That was just fun today. Just a couple of things I want to talk about. One thing I want to say is that we have a new Patreon partner. Ding, 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 ding. And it's Jeff Grody. Jeff, thank you. I love my Patreon supporters. You all are my new best friends. But thank you for hearing my heart, for knowing that we want to continue to bring quality programming and these great episodes of Black Like Me podcast out to people in this country and the world. And it's people like you, Jeff Grody, that helped me to do that. And so remember, folks, you can do this. We've got these tiers. So just click in the notes section of this podcast and see what you can do. Everyone's not in a position to support, but for those of you who are in a position and you are willing and able to, hey, we love it. We love it. We love it. So please keep that up. Hey, I want to do something today that we've never done before. I was talking with my team, with my manager and with my engineer and producer, and we were saying we would really like to promote our podcast more in social media. We're getting high quality national leaders, New York Times best-selling authors. We're really upping the ante. But there are some innovative things that we'd love to do in social media to promote our podcast. If you're listening and you have those skills, if you are adept at social media marketing, and that's a little bit more than just tweeting and reposting, but if you understand social media marketing, or if you have a really good friend who's been wanting to use their skills for helping a good cause, go to alexg.com. Reach out to me in the Contact Alex G section because we read every email that comes in. So you can tweet out at me, but you can send a private email by just going to alexg.com. Send your friend to that. Send them a link to it. Send them a link to the contact page. But holler back at us because I would love to have Eli, my engineer, to really talk with you and to find out what we could do to let more people know what we're doing. So we're testing this out. Don't leave me out here hanging. Either you have these skills or you know someone who does. So help us make a change and reach out and do that. Last thing I want to do before I just start reflecting is we have people downloading or who have downloaded, people who are listening in 46 of the U.S. States. And so there are only 4 places where we don't have any downloads. We're in season 3. I know. What are these people thinking? What are these people doing? Montana, Listen. I'm not going to even play. It doesn't even need to be black people in Montana because I don't think there are any. But if you are, you need to be listening. You need this. If you're black and in Montana, what are you doing? Get up on this podcast. And so if you're in Montana and you know someone who's black, you know one of the 3 people who are in Montana, I can joke because people say that about Wisconsin. Please help us to get your friends to listen. And this is not just black listeners. We have a lot of non-black listeners. The Dakotas, South Dakota, North Dakota. Come on. I've been out there. I've vacationed. Come on. You owe me. Come on out and listen. And West Virginia. Come on. You know that you know somebody who either would enjoy this or needs to hear this. Help us. Montana, the Dakotas, and West Virginia. I would just love to be able to boast and brag and say that we have listeners in all 50 states. So please help me to make that happen. And listen, you're not responsible for what people do, but if you have at least reached out to your friends who are in that area by reposting or retweeting or sending a link to them, hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on alexg.com under the contact section. Let me know that you're at least sharing the podcast in those areas because I think that that's a lot of fun. Okay, hold on. Let me take a sip of my coffee because I like my coffee like my life, black and hot. I would say steamy, but people would take that the wrong way. Listen, I had a great experience earlier this week. The University of Wisconsin-Madison hosts African Scholars. It's a program where thousands of scholars from Africa are nominated or they apply to a program that allows 700 to be selected and come to several U.S. Cities to really understand urban life, civic life, our medical health systems, politics, government, you name it. Well, the creme de la creme come to Madison, of course, because of my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But their African Studies department reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, we have these scholars who are coming." Actually, I reached out to them and said, "Hey, I want to talk to these scholars." And so we connected. It worked out well. And so 21 scholars showed up at our office. They're representing 18 countries, Niger, South Africa, Zambia, South Sudan, Liberia, Ghana, Kenya, from all over. I mean, and these folks range from, they're serving as general secretaries, of branches of government. They are physicians. When they were introduced to me, I was told that some of them are the future presidents of their nations. I mean, and they're in their 20s and 30s. These are really young scholars. And so I had a chance to address them, introduce my staff, and it was just really phenomenal. So let me just pause and reflect for just a moment. I live in a city that draws students from basically over 80 different countries. There is not a strong rapport between Africans and African Americans. Now, if you're listening and you don't know a difference between Africans and African Americans, you need to go and listen to season 1 and 2 again. But there's not been a real connection. One, African Americans, and I'm just being honest right here, we were really embarrassed about being from Africa, but because of what was shown to us about Africa growing up. Now, you have to understand, my mother is from Hayti, Missouri. She was raised in Chicago. She did not obtain her college degree until she was in her 30s. And so black people don't sit around the dinner table talking about the politics of Botswana or Mozambique any more than my white friends sit around talking about the French Revolution or what's happening over in Paris on a day-to-day basis because they may be French. And so the studies of other places is somewhat academic. And so as black people, we grew up, and at some point we even said, "I'm not from Africa," because we just saw images of people with elongated features and bones in their noses and sort of the National Geographic image. Now, not that those things have not happened and are not real, but that's not the sum total of Africa. And the way it was displayed or talked about was really demeaning. It did not give a true picture of the sophistication of African people, the richness and the wealth of Africa as a continent. And so as I sat in this room with these folks, and let me just back up and tell you something. When the organizers of this, they were 2 white women, they came, I pulled them to the side and said, I have a special request. It's very rare that Africans and African Americans get space together. So I'm going to need the room. Yeah, it got silent just like that when I said it. And I didn't say it mean. I didn't just say, hey, white people hit the door. I just knew that there were some things I wanted to say to people from Africa, young leaders, future world leaders. And I knew that they had questions they wanted to ask me about the Black experience. And I'm testing something. I'm trying to see, and I'm trying to see, how do Black people function when there are no white people in the room? How does it impact the candor of the discussion, the frankness of the discussion, and the depth of it? Well, we went into it. We talked about the impact of slavery. We talked about the impact of colonialism, and sometimes, the west part of Africa dealt with colonialism and slavery. It was just powerful. Their next meeting was with the mayor. They were late getting on their bus. They were asking questions, handing me their cards. They're wanting to talk. They're wanting to connect because they realize that there's so much about African Americans that they don't know. And because they're coming here to meet thought leaders and power brokers, usually in places of education and government, they're meeting with older white men because those are people who hold those roles and positions mainly in our community. And so they had never talked to someone who's a pastor, who also runs a nonprofit. I had my wife there, and I talked about her role as our pastor of administration, and I had other women who were on our team. One young guy, he stood up and he said, for African people, the Black woman is the backbone of our society, the backbone of our culture, and the backbone of our communities. And so he looks to my wife and he says, so Mom, thank you for being here today and tell us about your work and your purpose. Women were asking questions directed at her, and my wife is really a behind-the-scenes person. She would rather do almost anything than stand in front of a crowd and field questions. But she could feel the pride in the hearts and souls of the women who saw a Black woman from America talking about her role of leadership inside a church and a nonprofit organization. It was absolutely amazing. I think one of the greatest takeaways that I'm still processing, and I'm actually want to get this gentleman to come to the studio at some point, but he stood up and he just said, Dr. G, what's the narrative of African Americans about Africa? He said, because not all of us were sold into slavery. He said, for example, I'm from Kenya, and as Kenyans, we don't wake up in the morning thinking we're Black. We're Kenyan. And I physically grabbed my head and I just thought, would you please say that again? That you wake up not thinking you're Black. Now, he is not saying, let me just slow this down for a moment. He is not saying that he is denying his ethnicity. He is not saying that he's questioning it. He's saying that he is from Kenya, where the president and the vice president and his doctors and his lawyers and his professors and his school teachers and all of those folks have looked like him. And so he grew up with a sense that this is just who I am. Now, let me just switch for just a moment. In America, white people don't have to think about that either because so many things cater to you culturally that you don't have to get up thinking, hey, I'm white, because so many things are designed for you. And this is what he was saying. So he came to America to work on a PhD. He does not have this sense of ascribed inferiority because of his skin color, because he's Kenyan and does not call himself Black. He's Kenyan, and it's assumed that if you're Kenyan, you're Black. And so, or you have dark skin or a great amount of melanin in your skin. And so he doesn't feel as if there's a misperception or misunderstanding of him or innate, that people are assuming that he has innate inferiority. So he just shows up in America as a scholar, as a thinker. My government paid for me to come here. My family raised money for me to come here. I deserve to be here. And so I just love that perspective that he does not, even though he wrestles with colonialism and the residual effects of that, he does not get up in the morning thinking, I've got to prove to these white people that I'm smart, because he knows he's smart. Why else would he be here working on a PhD? I love that. That's something that that Kenyans and other folks from around Africa can really help African Americans with, because this social construct of race, of being white, of being black, is so embedded with this false sense of superiority and inferiority. And so that consciousness, that awareness puts an extra burden on us, because there's an assumption that there is an assigned ineptitude, a lack of sophistication, understanding that's connected with our skin color. It's why so often white people will say to many of us, "Wow, you're articulate," which I rarely hear people say about white people. But articulate, because in their thought, their mindset is, you don't sound like your skin color. You sound smarter than your skin color. And people mean it as a compliment. So I'm not even trying to dog people. I just want you, as my white listeners, to begin to unpack the saying that when someone close to you meets someone black and they say, "You got to meet Jeffrey. He is so freaking articulate." What are they saying? They're surprised by his intelligence. They're surprised they could put a sentence together. That's usually a requirement for a PhD candidate. But it's showing that the interaction and the images that people have of folks who look like me is such that when people who look like me don't sound like what people think they should, it's a surprise. So I just loved meeting these individuals. They've already started following me on Twitter. I started following them back. We were wanting to throw a reception for them. But it was just really, really great to honor them in our community.
Hey everybody, we hope you've been enjoying this episode. My name is Tyler Nyland. I am the podcast manager for Black Like Me, and I wanted to let you know about an opportunity that you have if you've been looking to really gain better access and hear more about what we're doing with Black Like Me. We have an opportunity called Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/blacklikeme, you can find our page where we offer a lot of different opportunities for you to get involved or to join us in this work. So if you go on there, you'll see a bunch of different tiers that you can join, where you can become financial supporters. And with each different tier, you get an opportunity to receive different benefits from us, such as you might be a part of one where you get your name shouted on a podcast, get a specific thank you. You might be able to join an exclusive Facebook group where you're able to process through different issues together. And then for a certain level, you even could get Dr. G to come out and fly out to you to have a meal. If you're a business, he might be able to do a whole day of consulting for you. So if you would go to patreon.com/blacklikeme, you can check out all the different tiers and options that we are able to give you. And you can really just support the mission of what we do here at Black Like Me. So we want to thank you for being a listener. That's awesome. Please go to patreon.com/blacklikeme. If you have any other questions, go to alexg.com/contact to fill out the form for a Black Like Me insurance. Now back to the episode.
But I have to just go back to the two women who coordinated. One, I appreciate them. And this is not mean. This is not meant to demean them in any way. But it does something when someone black says to someone white, "We need black space." I wasn't saying that they were bad. I was not saying that they were evil. I was not saying that there were any of these things. And I know white people's minds are thinking, well, that's reverse discrimination. Like, what would happen if I would ask you to leave a space? Well, let's try it and see. But even when I said it to both of the women, do you think that they left? Hell to the no. They still stood there. And then they pointed at one of their black staff members. They said, "Well, she's our staff. Should she leave too, or can she stay?" I looked at her, and she clearly was black, and she was African. I said, "Oh, no, she can stay." And so they said, "Well, one of our staff members is coming. We'll just wait until he gets here." First of all, I said it to the first woman, and she said, "Someone's en route." I said, "Well, let's wait till she gets here." I said, "Well, can't you call her so that you guys can go to a coffee shop and come back?" So no, she waited till she got there. Then they wanted to wait until the black guy got there. Well, they're cutting into my time. And so they said, "Well, we don't want to hold up your presentation. So we'll just hang back until Harry gets here." Well, I said, "Well, don't the staff know what Harry looks like? Can't they explain to him what's going on here?" And then they still stood around and talked to the students and the participants. And so I think in people's minds, I don't know what people are thinking, but I know that it seemed to be very confusing. that they needed to huddle up to understand what it meant to find that door and go to a coffee shop. Now, listen to you all. Listen to me. I'm a pastor. I'm a consummate people lover. It means a lot to me to be liked by people. So I'm not rude. I'm not short or terse with folks unless I'm having a bad day or they're getting on my nerves. And so I said it very politely. I mean, I was actually sweating when I did it because I didn't want to come across as being that guy. But I needed to be that guy, and I need to be that guy without apologizing. But let me tell you something. These folks traveled from Africa, from all over the continent. They wanted a meaningful experience. And this might have been one of the few spaces where they got to talk to a black leader and his wife and his black staff. Do you think they went anywhere else in Madison, Wisconsin, and all the presenters were black? I don't think so. And so we needed that space to be able to avoid saying, no offense intended, to their coordinators, but this has been our experience, or this is what we think, or this is what we feel. Plus, they asked me very personal questions that I would not have wanted to answer in mixed company. And so I want folks who are listening, particularly non-black folks, to understand that when black people ask for the room, we are not anti-white. It's not even about y'all. It really is not about you. It's that we don't get enough opportunities to be in black space with black people talking about black stuff unapologetically. And we don't even know that we don't have it until we have it. And we think, is this what it feels like? I cannot answer all the questions. The coordinators had to push, to say, come on, let's take our picture. Let's get on the bus. They were almost late to meet our mayor because they wanted to interact with my black staff. So that was very powerful. But again, to those of you who might be asked by your black colleagues, or ask your black colleagues, are there ever times where you just want to talk to other black people in our department, on our campus, in our organization, in our community, and not have us around? And we don't mean always, but are there just times that you want to do that? Are you able, you have to have a rapport with people. Don't ask strangers this because you'll either get looked at funny or told something about yourself. So don't practice this on black people you don't know, because black people don't play that. But if you have folks that you're close to and people with whom you can have frank discussions, ask them about the importance of black space and black people just being able to talk and laugh and process. It was just therapeutic. And I'm sad that they're going back home in a few weeks because I want them to stay around more. And this leads me to, so just know that when people ask for the room, don't get insulted. They're not saying that you taint anything, but that in America, that is a premium. To have black space is a premium. This leads me to my next point. In August, the NAACP in Washington, D.C. is organizing a trip back to Ghana. And it is this year, 2019, is the 400th anniversary of the transatlantic slave trade that began in 1619, thereabouts. So 400 years. Now, we know that people didn't transport slaves all 400 years because it became illegal. However, slave masters started raping their slaves like Reuben did my great-great-great-grandmother. And these white men started creating slaves because when they sired children by their black slaves, those children took on the ethnicity of their mother, which meant they were slaves. But this is the 400th anniversary. And a group of people are going back, a couple of hundred. And there's a number of things that we're going to be doing. We're first of all going to see the African American History Museum in D.C. We're going to have a candlelight vigil in Jamestown, Virginia. Then we're going to fly to Accra. And in Ghana, those of us who are on the trip, it's a couple hundred, we take an African ancestry DNA test. Now, I'm not being paid for doing this. So I'm not trying to do a commercial for them, but they do boast that they are the only of the ancestry dynasties that do not sell data or your DNA. And so while we're there, they're going to do a reveal of what part of Africa we're from. Now, I'm already emotional about that happening. I've been studying my Welsh roots by understanding my G family. I'm getting to know more of my relatives on my father's side of the family who are the Black G's. I'm getting to know my mom's side of her family, the Grays family. Shout out to Ohio and Hayti, Missouri, and the Grays family that are there. But I want to know where in Africa I'm from. That's one of the things that African American people really don't know. We really don't know. We just say Africa like it's a country. Africa is not the counterpart of Ireland or England or France. It is a continent and not a country. So I can't wait. So my wife and my daughter and I are going on this trip. It's going to be a week. We're going to meet with dignitaries. We're going to learn more about history. We will see some of the places where African people were stolen, where they were sold, where they were traded. And it's the chance for African Americans to go back home and to say, we have not forgotten Africa. We are not ashamed of Africa. And it gives the folks of Ghana, of West Africa, a chance to tell us that we've never been forgotten, that they have been hoping that their sons and daughters would come back home and to talk about our exploits and what we've done and how we fared. I know that it's going to be a spiritual experience, but a very emotional experience. It's going to be educational. It's going to be historical. It's going to be historic. 400 years ago, the first Africans were transported to the Americas, and then 400 years later, we're coming back to honor the motherland and to connect with our villages and communities where we're from. And I'm just so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. If you are listening and you're from Ghana, hey, we're coming August 18th through the 25th. If you're listening and you got friends in Ghana, let them know we are coming. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some celebs and dignitaries on this trip, but it is so amazing, and I'm so looking forward to it. I want to understand the richness of Ghana and West Africa. I want to hear people tell their stories of not having to get up and think about what they look like and what the confidence that they exude because they have seen people like them doing great things and they understand their history, not just recent, but ancient. I'm not going on some type of missions trip to help and save someone and dig a well or do some of these things. And they're important. I'm not belittling them. We've done it. We do it. But I'm going so that I can experience a greater degree of healing, because so much of my work entails brokering relationships and conversations between blacks and non-blacks and blacks and whites, that I'm really excited about just receiving more information and more healing so that I can have an even greater impact in my work. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm working with my team currently to figure out, how do I tell this story? What equipment will I take? What interviews will I do? But I'm going to have my smartphone. I'm going to have equipment. I'm going to certainly be having clips, and I'll try to record things so that we can do a cutaway to it when I come back. But come on, you're my Black Like Me podcast family. You know that I'm taking you with me. And so I'm going to even try to record things that I can send back to the team that maybe we can put up while I'm away. It's going to be so exciting. Hey, we're getting close to the end of my time. I just wanted to talk to you about some things that's going on in my world. I want to close out with something that I call a Geeism. And a Geeism is a pithy saying that I've created to motivate, inspire, direct folks, and really to help them think differently about their environment, their obstacles, and their own abilities. And so the purpose of my Geeism is to help people to become their very best self. That they will understand that people would realize that they were designed with some divine creativity and insight. And even in our ordinariness, we are still extraordinary because of the impact we're able to have on others and our world. And so I just want to close out with this Geeism, and I'm putting a link in the notes section, because if you go to my website, alexg.com, a new Geeism pops up every time you come. But if you just need something that you can just listen to and think about on a daily basis, hey, just come. You can subscribe at alexg.com and you will get these regularly. But here's today's Geeism. Sometimes it's not enough to just merely rise to the occasion, because there are always occasions and they may not be yours. We need to rise to the occasion of our purpose. We need to rise to transcendence, to relevance, and to the empowerment of others. I've spent a lot of my life just meeting expectations, and many of those expectations have been low. Some of them are my own. They're I positioned myself that way, but sometimes they've been imposed by others. But here's what I want to ask you. Are you just rising to the occasion at work or in your family because someone has only asked you to do something? Someone's only asked you something that the occasion might only require 30% of your ability. So then what are you doing with the other 70%? So I want to ask you, are you just getting through life, and are you only rising to the simple occasions that are coming your way, or is the occasion of your purpose transcendence over some malady in your life, or some pain or some brokenness? Is the occasion to rise to a greater degree of relevance of who you truly are and were created to be in this world? To profundity? Do you rise to the occasion to just change the atmosphere in a place because you have insight, experience, intellect, and you can really take something from A to Z, but you're just rising to the occasion so you don't move the needle? I'm going to need you to. The world needs your profundity. And are you rising to the occasion of empowering others? Because really, it's not just about us. It's about how we bring other people along and how we really help other people. And this is why I do Black Like Me podcast, because for so long, so many years of my life, I was told, you're good, you're smart, you're articulate. And so I just rose to the occasion, which was typically about 40% of my potential. I'm 55 years old. I've lived longer than I'm going to live, and I want to reach my potential. I want to be transcendent. I want to be profound. I want to empower others. I want to use my voice and my platform to not only cry out for justice, but to demand it and the empowerment of others. And so journey with me. Don't just rise to the occasion, rise to the fullness of your potential, because you deserve it. The Creator is expecting it, and the world needs it. Hey, share this stuff. This is some good shit. Share this stuff with people. Let them know. You'll see if you follow me on Facebook that I often will say click, because I will have a link to the to the podcast. Subscribe, because if you're just listening, you haven't subscribed. Come on, you're not really my family. Learn, enjoy, and then share with others. Hey, this has been another exciting segment of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. I'm always trying to make things better, internally, externally, globally, because it's easy to sit back and just complain about the way things are. But I think we're smart enough, sharp enough, and gifted enough to make a difference. So go out there and have a great day. I want to thank Corey Saffold and Marcus Fleming for creating the music for this podcast, my podcast manager, Tyler Nyland, my engineer, Eli Steenlich, my editor, Jeremy Holliday, and our intro and outro are recorded by Cynthia Woodland. And a special thank you to WORT Studios, where we record Black Like Me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.